sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You know, we always say around here you can't escape Steelers talk in Pittsburgh. And honestly,
I don't know why you would want to.
Yeah, exactly. But today, we're not diving into, the terrible towels or the steel curtain or anything like that. We're actually talking about something a little bit more controversial.
A little spicy.
Yeah, a little bit spicy. Is it time for a coaching change in the Steel City?
Ooh, that's a hot take.
It is a hot take, and it all stems from this article we saw over on Steelersdepot. So for those of you listening who aren't familiar with Steelersdepot, it's like a great fan site, lots of opinions and analysis.
Always a good time over there. Always
a good time. And they picked up on a quote from Kyle Brandt from NFL Game Day Morning. And this is what really got people talking, because he said, maybe it's time for the Steelers and Tomlin to consider a divorce.
A D word.
The D word, divorce. I know, right? It's a little crazy to even think about, but let's face it. I mean, the Steelers haven't won a playoff game in 8 years.
8 years?
8 years. That's like unheard of.
It is unheard of for this franchise, especially, when you think about the history, we're talking about Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher. These guys, they had their ups and downs too, but they never went through a drought that long.
Never that long.
No.
And it's like they get to the playoffs and they just hit this wall. It's like the regular season is almost like a mirage.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Brandt was saying. Like, it's not just about making the playoffs anymore. You got to win when it counts.
Right.
And for a franchise with this much history and with 6 Super Bowl rings, that's the expectation.
Yeah, you can't really talk about this without bringing up that last playoff game.
Oh, boy.
Because Brandt called it undignified. I think he used that word. And I can kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
It was not pretty.
They were outplayed. They were outcoached.
Completely.
Double-digit deficits. The offense just couldn't get going. Defense couldn't stop anything. They were just a step behind the whole game.
So this is kind of the question for everyone listening out there. I mean, some teams would just be happy to make the playoffs, but we're talking about the Steelers here, right? Is making it to the playoffs enough for a team with this kind of legacy?
That's a great question, and I think it's something that Steelers fans are kind of wrestling with right now, because you do have this history, this legacy, this expectation, and it feels like they're not quite reaching that level.
It's funny you say that, because the article even brings up Tomlin's regular season record, which is like, gotta admit, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, it's undeniable. He's a winner.
He's a winner, yeah.
He consistently puts together winning seasons. There's no question about that.
Yeah, they even say in the article that, there's probably a lot of teams that would be like dying to have him as their coach.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at, the fact that he just signed a contract extension.
Right.
That shows that the Steelers organization clearly still believes in him.
Yeah. And from what we've heard, it sounds like the players are still behind him as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
There's no mutiny brewing in the locker room or anything.
No locker room issues or anything.
But it kind of circles back to this question of, is the regular season success enough?
Right.
To kind of outweigh the lack of playoff wins. That's the big question.
Yeah, it's like they're good, but not great. You know what I mean?
They're stuck in second gear.
Second gear. Yeah, and it's interesting because, they beat playoff teams during the regular season. I mean, they even beat the Ravens this year, and we saw how far the Ravens went.
That's the perfect example.
It is the perfect example.
Like, they have the talent. They've shown they can beat the best teams in the league.
Right.
But for some reason, when they get to the playoffs, it's like they hit a wall.
Yeah.
And so that kind of brings us back to, Brandt's whole point about a divorce. Is that really a realistic option at this point? With a new contract, that would be a pretty bold move.
Yeah.
And the Steelers aren't exactly known for knee-jerk reactions.
Right.
They value stability. They believe in giving their coaches a fair shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Brandt's argument does raise some valid points.
Yeah, for sure. So, he also talks about the quarterback situation and the roster, the potential of the roster and how that might factor into all of this. Do you think that's something that plays a big role in all this?
Oh, of course. You can't talk about, a team's success without considering the quarterback. But again, I think what we've seen from the Steelers is they can beat top-tier teams with the guys they have.
Right.
So it's not just about the individual talent. It's about how that talent comes together, how it's utilized, how it performs under pressure.
Yeah.
So
it feels like we're kind of back to this age-old question, right? Is it better to be consistently good, or is it better to reach for those moments of greatness, even if it means more inconsistency?
It's the classic dilemma. And I think for the Steelers, it becomes even more complex because of who they are and what they represent.
Yeah, because they're not just any team. You know, the Steelers are like woven into the fabric of Pittsburgh. They're the blue-collar ethos. They're the grit and the resilience. Like you said, there's a certain standard of excellence that their fans expect.
Absolutely. And so that makes this whole debate even more intense, you know?
Yeah. So where do we go from here? What should fans be thinking about as we head into the offseason and, look ahead to next year?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And truthfully, I don't think there are any easy answers. But here's something I want you to think about as you're kind of processing all of this.
Okay.
Think about how much weight you personally put on regular season success versus playoff performance.
Okay.
Especially for a team like the Steelers, with their history and their legacy, is it enough to just consistently make the playoffs?
Right.
Or does that lack of a deep playoff run, does that lack of a championship appearance signal that something needs to change?
It's a tough one.
It is. It's a tough
I
one.
don't know if I have an answer.
And there are really passionate arguments on both sides. And ultimately, it's a decision that the Steelers organization is going to have to grapple with.
Yeah.
But, one thing's for sure, it's going to be a fascinating offseason in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And those terrible towels, I'm sure, will be waving just as fervently no matter what happens.
It's always a good time to be a Steelers fan, even when you're arguing about the coach. Well, hey, thanks for taking this deep dive with me. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
And for everyone listening out there, keep those conversations going. Keep those terrible towels ready. And we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're